Good day, everyone, and good evening for MENA region, and it's also a good morning for America. Americas. Yeah, how are you? I'm super excited today, Diana, for having you today with us and this money conversations. And actually, today you have something that is super special that you already were excited to share the last episode. And actually, we are going to talk about today, which is the executive dashboard. First of all, welcome, Diana, and
Thank you.
very nice morning. So,
Thank you for
what?
having me.
Thank you. So, what do you like to say about it, the executive dashboard?
Yeah, so the executive dashboard is just a very simple tool but it gives us a lot of information. So much of what we've talked about in previous episodes is knowing what's the difference between your current state and your desired state. And when it comes to money for individuals and businesses, a lot of times people don't, they maybe have a sense of their desired state, but they don't really understand their current state. So this is just a simple tool for business owners, business leaders to get a sense of what's happening with the money in your business, and then how do you make strategic choices with that money.
Wow. And actually, I'm one of those people who are actually looking for connecting with such a solution.
There you go.
Yeah, I've been advised to do it maybe 4 or 5 years back, but I actually am not good at following up numbers. I'm good at numbers, but not following up. Following.
Okay, here we go. Maybe that's a commitment before our next episode.
Yeah, actually, I'm very super excited about it. Yeah, being coached live. so, and actually, it's for, and I believe that coming from the background of being a cost center manager, I was always at the part where I don't do actually revenue generating activities. I'm always in the service, operations, project management. I incur cost, and actually I just control the budget when it comes to the cost of the project. And actually I try to maximize all the time the excellence, the quality, and when you work in multinationals that really care for quality and their deliverables, they don't care much about the cost. Actually, they don't look at it. So turning from this person into a business owner, I believe that it was super hard for me to actually see, the revenue generation, the expenses, the full spectrum of the corporate finance, even if you understand it on an intellectual level, maybe in a course that's finance for non-finances or something, an MBA program that's with financial management. It is something, and putting this in focus is something else.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what you'll find too is that the concepts that we'll talk about here are likely things that you tracked in operations or in your other departments. You're used to tracking metrics. So now all we're doing is tracking metrics related to revenue. That's the only difference. And for some people, if you are a leader in your organization or in your business and it's not directly, this is not a tool that has to be financially focused. It's just so often in working with business owners and business leaders or coaches creating their own businesses, the revenue is the part where people can sometimes be more nebulous and not have as many answers. So that's usually what I use it for. But I talk about in the video as well. If you want to use it to track other metrics, you can. But just even the concept of executive dashboard is that, like a dashboard, you can look at it and you should know right away. Are things going well? Are things not going well? It should be easy.
Wow. So that's really amazing, Diana. Thank you for sharing that. So I believe that you prepared something like a video to explain this, or so can we go for that?
Please.
Yes. Okay. So let's do it.
Hi, I'm Diana Ideas with Hawthorne Union, and I want to give you a quick introduction to the executive dashboard. So a lot of people are familiar with dashboards in a car, let you know how you're doing, how many miles, what your speed is, other things related to hot or cold. Some of us are used to more complex dashboards where we're looking at different graphs and things like that. So there are plenty of vendors out there who will give you dashboards or offer you products to set up your services and be able to build and support your business and business growth. At the same time, a really simple version of these is with Excel. And so just taking a look at Excel, you can also do this on a whiteboard or anything like that. But looking at your money and your revenue streams and also your key metrics over time. And part of the key with an executive dashboard, just like an executive summary, is to keep it simple. Keep it simple so that you can look and at a glance you can see things. You can always do tabs of different pages or a lot more details, but the purpose of an executive summary, the purpose of an executive dashboard is to make it quick and easy, but also be able to make those executive decisions based on building your business and seeing how your business is doing. So what I like to do is just up here at the top, I track a lot related to revenue. So whether you have different clients, maybe it's clients 1 through 10, maybe you're a coach, but you speak and you also teach classes, and you potentially have another kind of side hustle or day job that's bringing in revenue. So what you want to look at is on a monthly basis, and it's October, so potentially starting this in October or rearranging the months, however you want to look at it. You may also want to fill in over time. So if you have, let's say one client who gives you the same amount every month, that's something you can fill in kind of over time. It's also revenue you're potentially expecting. Now, something I do a little bit differently with the executive dashboard is I like to change the color of the revenue that's forecasted, but not yet come in yet. So I have a sense that, if this client is paying $1,000 a month, I have a sense that there will be more coming in, but I'm not counting my chickens before they hatch. So that allows me to make strategic decisions, not only based on the past and what happened in the past, but also what's happening in the future. Let's say, I have another client where it's maybe a higher client, and I'm pretty sure they're going to pay me later in November, but I'm not exactly sure if they're going to renew or when they're going to renew. So, something to look at here, and you can see over time is that, the numbers I have in the black is money that has already come in, but then the numbers that are in gray are forecasted. I don't usually forecast something unless it's already in discussions with the client or already booked. So for example, I have someone who wants me to start work in a few months. So those would be potentially things that I would do here. But maybe it's work I'm doing in October that I'm not able to invoice for until November, and they have 30 days to pay, and then it's December. So, just kind of thinking about, and as you forecast revenue, and you can always continue the months out on the other side. But what I like is it not only helps you see as you look at your different revenue streams, it helps you see where your money's coming from. You can also go to a different granular level detail. So perhaps maybe this is work with a group or a specific company, or these are speaking engagements and it's just the money you get from speaking, or potentially you wrote a book. So one of the things that's important to look at, if you are a business owner, you're likely looking at revenue streams from products and clients. If you're an entrepreneur, you also want to look at how are you making your revenue? How are you bringing that money in? Because if you're not working full-time for someone else and just collecting a paycheck at certain times in the month, you want to be looking at different sources. So what I do on my own executive dashboard is I total the amount, and then I also have a line for expenses. So if you're tracking your expenses over time, whether that's through a bookkeeper or through QuickBooks or any kind of service like that, it may also give you a different level of granular detail, potentially when you have to make safe harbor early tax payments, or there are other large expenses you have, or maybe you're looking to spend a lot of money in December to reduce your taxable income. This can also help you track over time. It's not only helpful for this year and planning this year, but also looking at next year. And then looking at, okay, what's your total minus your expenses? What's your net? Because if you have expensive month, or there's a lot going out, or you have employees that you're looking to pay, what are you actually bringing in as profit? And how does that affect the business? How does that affect growth? For a lot of executive dashboards, people will also do supporting metrics. So this is kind of taking whatever metrics you're focused on, be it number of networking events or sales calls, or reaching out to certain people, or booking speaking engagements or anything like that. So think about if there's supporting metrics that you want to see at a glance. So whether you have a team and you're tracking the activity of your team, or whether you want to make sure that you as the business owner are doing certain things that will grow the business. So this is a relatively simple tool and also a very short explanation of it. This is a lot of what I use with business owners who don't already have something that's tracking their money. So many people have stress about their money. They're not sure where it goes or what's happening. And actually, there are more sophisticated charts and things like that that you can use, but also sometimes it's best to just keep it simple and say, hey, where is my money coming from? Where is it going? What do I think the opportunities are? So just a quick introduction, if there are tools and services that you are already using that have these features, but I find the act of me as a business owner looking at where my money's coming from and these things over time and being able to know, hey, you know what, in April, it looks like I don't have as much planned revenue coming in. So let me determine and change my behavior for the next quarter or two to make sure that it's supporting that. These are important things to think about both as a business leader and also as a business owner. And this is a simple way to get started.
Wow. Thank you for this, explanation. And it's actually very simple, straightforward, and even, I believe anyone can actually start doing it. If it's not yet there, it can be easily done. Thank you for this actually very, very nice presentation, Diana.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's so simple. What's interesting though is that oftentimes, even if someone has someone tracking their money, be it a bookkeeper or a CPA or software that's doing it for them, they don't necessarily look. It's just kind of like hope is not a business strategy though, right? So crossing your fingers and hoping it's going to be okay and hoping that the checks don't bounce as you write them, or that's not effective. That's not, sometimes it happens, but that's not effective or strategic. And so actually what I found is even if sometimes business owners have more sophisticated systems of tracking their money, they still don't necessarily have their own comfort with it and the actual looking at it. And a lot of times I think people use executive dashboard for what happened in the past, but don't use the forecasting element. And for me as a business owner, the forecasting element and being able to make decisions and see, hey, I need to generate business for 3 months out, or, my 6 months out is looking a little slim, or actually I'm forecasted at this certain point and maybe I need to say no to opportunities. That's part of what's really helpful for me because it helps me see where the money's coming from, which also is directly correlated to my job satisfaction and life satisfaction.
It's super actually, that what you're saying here is actually something, that in a way I always tended to delegate this to others. somebody else's job, to do it. And I know many leaders who actually try to tend to avoid discussing financial issues and delegate it to others. And I believe that most of these leaders that I know had some serious issues with their so either or they delegated to a superhero, somebody who's really very accountable, very trustworthy. They can actually really delegate this to them so that they can focus on their technical, delivery things there. So what kind of, trust, when can I trust that I'm that I am delegating to the right person, and this is something, what is the minimal also that I can actually, that I need to see, there is like a vanilla, like something like a minimal where I actually have to, this is where a leader has to actually put some focus. And there is also another thing, this is where you can actually delegate and actually get acknowledged the trustworthy person that you're putting there. So these are, so what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think as the leader or as the executive, however you want to term it, that even if you're not the one filling this out, you're the one who needs to be able to look at it and see like, hey, this is a short month, or we have a lot of business this month, or it looks like in order, with what we have in the pipeline, we may need to grow the business. So it's not just related to kind of scarcity and bill paying. It's also linked to strategic planning and ability to be abundant. So I am all for delegating tasks and having people do what they're great at. I think the challenge is that a lot of times with money, people don't want to talk about it and they just hope that everything's going to be okay. And we've talked about how that plays out and sometimes doesn't play out well in personal lives, but that also happens in business. So I'm curious for you, when you see this and you think about your own business, how does this feel relevant or not?
It feels much relevant because actually, I believe that in a way, I need to learn actually and get well educated on how to and create a habit on looking at numbers, and this is something I believe I'm committing myself to. However, still it is, like this resistance to change, this resistance, it's
The
this
new
kind
muscle.
of a new muscle, but it's
Yeah.
not well. I'm not taking it in a playful energy. I actually am looking in a playful way to relate to money. I'm not sure why I'm not very playful when it comes to money, finances, and everything.
Yeah. And then
I'm playful with the technical stuff. So
well, and sometimes that's why it feels like it's not a fit, right? If it doesn't match your personality, or if the money conversations have been stressful. But perhaps for you, looking at it as, where's the opportunity? So looking at the numbers as they currently stand. And so for you, looking past, right? If you went ahead and you or someone else prepared January through October, and then also thought about, okay, what do you have in the pipeline coming in for October to December? And then if whether you fill that out or someone prepares it for you, then you have an opportunity to say, where's the opportunity? And sometimes where we're spending our time is not where we're making our money. And if that is a conscious choice that we're making and a strategic choice, then I'm all for it. So it also comes back to choice. If we're just kind of, oh, I'm working so hard on this and I'm hoping that it works out, that again, that's not effective in kind of business and sustainability and growth. I have one client where they spent a lot of their time and focus on one of their product lines. And through the process of looking at their numbers, we realized that the other product line that they weren't spending time on was where they were generating the majority of the revenue. And they didn't know, right? If you don't look at the numbers, you don't know. And so now they have a whole different level of comfort with the numbers. And they're also very intentionally focused on the product line that is making them more money. And so it's generating more. So that was already happening. So the thing is that there's already things happening. The seeds that we planted are already growing or not growing, whether or not we close our eyes or actually actively tend to them. It's just, it's fiscal responsibility to look at, okay, I planted these seeds, or even if we're not doing money and it's metrics, my employees are, making this many calls and trying to close this many deals. It's circling back and looking at what's happening with that.
Wow. So actually, when we look at the fact that it's a fiscal responsibility, and relate to it with that, what's the opportunity that's found in it, and try to adjust our times into revenue generating time instead of doing what we like. Here I believe that it comes back to, the three things are actually coming back to the core of the personality, working on the character, working on the state of being of the leader. It's obviously it seems, ABC, but the trouble comes in from the personal values, how you hold yourself, how you bring yourself into the game.
So even in your language, though, there's a heaviness, right?
Yeah.
The trouble is, the problem is, there's a heaviness there. And some of it is just, I do think it is how we, a lot of times money is negative. Oh, there's not enough. If I only had enough, or I could have more freedom, or I could do what I wanted, etc. And so there is a heaviness, there is a weight, there is a tie to worth that we've talked about. So more on the emotional side. But I think that for anyone running a business, it's important to have an understanding of what's happening in that business. And an important piece of what's happening in that business, even if you're independently wealthy or funded, someone wants that return on investment, right? And so it often is, it is difficult for people to look. It's just kind of like preparing wills and trusts and estates. It can be difficult as people prepare for, end of life, what's a transition, and how do I take care of my family? Like, these are difficult conversations to have. And then they have money layered in, and then we have our own kind of emotional baggage with money, so that gets complicated. But I think it's important to look at where we are and then determine, is this where we want to be? And, there's also relief in it as well. Maybe you're forecasting all the money that you need and you don't have to focus more time on sales. So you have a choice. Hey, do I want to spend more time on my personal life, or do I want to spend more time on sales? Is this a year that I'm growing the business or not? But we can't make strategic choices if we don't have all the information.
Yes. We can't have strategic information if strategic choices if we can't have information. It's very true. And actually, that when you said that's that discomfort, I'm still struggling internally, with accepting the fact that it's a skill that has to be built. But I'm looking and I'm looking at the fact that it's looking at forecasting, looking at the business not from the technical part and the delivery and the impact and the products, the quality, where most of people who come from my background, which is technical, cost center, so and so, to their business. When you're a technical person bringing something like a knowledge, like you have a value that you're bringing and you're not into looking into numbers. It's very difficult to integrate this and integrate both together. Mm-hmm. It seems like sometimes a polarity, that you have to deal with and you have to embrace and you have to actually work with the internal conflict working with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I will say some of what you're saying brings up my own path in management. I didn't like managing employee metrics. I just, I was managing coaches and I was training coaches and they were doing amazing work. But the metrics of how many people they called and how many meetings they had and this and that wasn't something that was, I knew how to do it. I had a basic proficiency, but I wasn't fluent in it. And actually what turned the tide for me is when I realized that my direct reports were doing amazing work and I was missing it because I wasn't looking, I wasn't catching it, and they weren't necessarily telling me or self-celebrating, and they didn't necessarily know. But within the context of taking a closer look at managing their performance, I realized that I was missing opportunities to truly care for them and set them up for success. So even if we're not talking about money and we're just talking about metrics, there's a way that we can actually care for others via making sure that the money is where it's supposed to be, or the metrics are where it's supposed to be. Because, I think sometimes people shirk their fiscal responsibility and just hope that everything's okay. But then if the company goes out of business and everyone loses their jobs, that's not taking care of the employees. So I hear, and I think it's great that you are acknowledging your own resistance to this. I think if you just look at it as what are the metrics that you had to manage to ensure that you and others were successful, it's just taking that same skill of looking holistically at the different sets of data, some of which is the human data and the emotional data, but also some of it is the numbers and the metrics that we're measuring. And then also seeing how can that information help us make better choices to support the individual and the business. Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
That's really profound, and thank you for bringing this, into this simplicity. So, can you tell us some stories of executives that you dealt with, maybe that had this struggle and or had similar struggles or struggles with looking at the fiscal responsibility and looking at numbers, putting this in strategy, and what was the biggest inner game that really challenged you with working with them?
Yeah, so I think most of the time this comes up in conversations where someone wants to grow their business. They want to either grow their business, increase employees, increase revenue, and they're not sure where to start. And often what happens is people will have shame. Oh, I should know how to do this. I'm a business owner. I should understand this. I should be making more money. So it's similar to the stories that we tell ourselves as individuals. I should be better at this. I should know this. But it's exacerbated because we're looking at a business and employees. And so what I usually say is it gets worse. Sometimes it gets worse before it gets better because we're actually taking a look at it And that can be a difficult thing to do if people haven't been looking at where their money is going or what that looks like. That can be challenging. But then from there, the process of making informed choice and for people to know how much revenue they're making, how much they're forecasting, how much how much time they want to dedicate or spend on growth, instead of it just being a mystery. It's like as we talk about money as another resource, if a plant that you plant in the ground is not growing, that you're going to check the light and the water and the soil. There's conditions that you check. So I think the thing is that as hard as it is to take that initial look and see what's happening with the money, to then be able to say, okay, what are the factors going into this? So a lot of what I do with business owners who are just starting out is I have them look at what's called their break even. How much money do you need to make to just even pay your bills and just get by, which is likely different from how much you want to make. And then, working your way up to that, making sure we look at the different revenue streams. Let's say someone has a job and they want to transition into business for themselves. How much revenue are we trying to replace? So I think that it's really a matter of taking something that feels kind of emotionally heavy and nebulous and looking at it and breaking it up into the smaller pieces. It's the kind of saying, how do you eat an elephant? Which I don't know who eats elephants or why, but one bite at a time, right? So I think a lot of times people just are so afraid and don't want to look at the money that they don't actually get down to the steps where we look at the different bites.
Yeah, there is a comment coming in from Ron Riley.
Thank you, Ron.
You're treading all over yourselves. Yeah. It's I believe that it's really as much as it seems simple, but the work that even sometimes it's when looking at numbers and sharing it with your employees and sharing it with the response and putting it like in KPIs and maybe discussing it in openness, whether they're good or bad. Sometimes some leaders may actually have some difficulty in expressing this in a way that comes in like a blame or like pointing fingers or like sometimes it comes in with some bad news that something is not working well or something needs to be adjusted. So how can this be actually shared in a healthy way within the organization? And maybe we discussed the safe spaces before, but now looking at the dashboard and actually understanding that if we can't get our targets at this month, we may have some challenges with keeping jobs or actually paying our bills or paying our salaries. So we need to do a better job. This kind of discussions, sometimes it's rough, especially for new business owners and business owners who have been out there, looking at improving their value proposition, and they actually were put in the first, years of investing in developing a business model, but not yet, in the phase of sustainability. When you start to sustain, then you will start to have some sort of, a kind of conversation, this difficult kind of conversation. So what happens there when you actually work with clients who have similar stories or similar cases?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it comes down to who you are as a leader and how you want to run your business. Because, my style is to be more transparent and work in a high trust environment where it's like, hey, this is a challenge and we need to get on this challenge together and see what we can do. Sometimes that's not that may not be relevant. People might make a decision to not disclose that information, to not create a bunch of stress and panic for their employees, or perhaps they're afraid that their employees will then lose trust or lose faith and then not, go to their competitors. So for me, just as a leader and as a coach, I'm a huge advocate for, trusting, having these difficult conversations, recognizing that they're difficult conversations and saying, hey, we're asking for all hands on deck. This is a challenging time and we'll get through it together. You have so many stories with just even from the pandemic where people donate sick time or, they give into the community so that layoffs didn't have to happen. So I think you have great anecdotal stories and actual stories out there. related to leaders who chose trust and chose to share. There may be conditions in which that's not appropriate based on trade secrets and competitors and things like that. So I think it comes down to who we are and how we want to lead, and then what the financial situation is. Because the financial situation, whether it's personal or in our business, is impacted. It's impacted by us. The money isn't just kind of moving itself around. It's impacted by us as the factors. It's kind of like the stock market. You can look at companies' financials and you can pick really good companies, but that doesn't mean that all the humans pressing their buttons to make their trade are going to go your way. So I think it comes down to, how do you want to be as a leader? What would you want to be told? And then, begin as you mean to go on. So are you going to withhold information? If you're withholding information, when are you sharing it? How do you make sure that you still have a trusting and transparent environment? So a lot of what you're talking about there, I think, links to trust and culture.
Wow. So it's very, how you say it, it's really very fluent, and thanks for putting it in that way, how it comes to who you want to be as a leader and what kind of organization you want to keep and what kind of organization culture you want to have. And actually, I believe that lots of innovation ideas, as much as some troubles may come in from, some employees' maturity may not comprehend, financial challenges, and it may take them into a panic zone. This is something that nobody likes: insecure companies or unsustainable companies. However, on the other side, it has to be shared on a certain level with maturity, and groundedness with those who can actually take actions and sharing, how to work together on resolving such issues, especially the key resources or the key responsibles. And this is who I would like to be. Maybe it's not something like a blueprint or something to anyone, but this is my map in a way, because actually it's neither hoarding the information and keeping all the stress on one person, nor actually keeping it as a public knowledge for everyone. It has to be somewhere in the middle that actually creates powerful conversations and creates safety from the fact that we are already in a sharing space. I'm really, I see that there is still lots to come, and I believe that maybe next session I will actually, I would love to be actually coached live about it, because I'm still having this internal of who I want to be and what I want to for my organization, and this is something that maybe our next session will be all about. So
yes, thank you.
Yeah, it's a live coaching session for Sharaf. Okay.
And thank you for sharing, because money is a very vulnerable topic. So appreciate your authenticity and transparency, and just being like, oh, it's a little uncomfortable, and I don't know that I really agree with this. It's a good balancing. And then, appreciate you also being willing to open up and share, because that's part of what we're talking about with safe spaces, is that these are what you're feeling is what a lot of people are feeling, if not the majority. And even if people are comfortable in their business finances, they're sometimes not comfortable in their personal finances, and vice versa, or their spouse or their business partners or their employees aren't necessarily comfortable. So, I think that these are conversations that it's important to have, and it's important to look at how do we want to be as leaders, and how does our relationship with money and the way we handle money play into that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And Ron actually is sending. Nicely done, you too.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Ron. Yeah, thank you. So it was really an amazing discussion today. It's the 33 minutes passed, and it was just like this. So what do you like to say, the golden nugget out of this discussion, just to brief, the outcome of what happened today?
Yeah, so I would present a opportunity, which some may perceive as a challenge, but an opportunity to take a look at your business, take a look at your money, and either on your own or have a conversation about it. It's not anything you have to change as far as the dollars and cents, but just having the comfort level to look and see where is the opportunity. What is an opportunity either for a conversation or an opportunity for abundance and revenue? Because I think so often people don't look at the money because they're afraid of it, or they're afraid that there won't be enough, or there's those negative feelings. But if we look at the, the other side of the coin, so to speak, and look to the positive, I believe we find what we're looking for. So if we look for opportunity or we look for something positive, that we find it.
Okay, that's great, Diana. And I'm really glad that we had this conversation. And I believe the next episode will be 2 weeks from now, right?
Great.
Yeah. And we will announce it on LinkedIn, right? And hopefully, and I believe that it has been great conversing with you today.
Great. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Diana. Okay. And thanks everyone, and goodbye.